The Sixers have made an intriguing signing, bringing in former top high school prospect Emoni Bates, among a few other players they signed on Monday night. We'll dive into each of these signings, and of course, the big one in Emoni Bates. Before we get into these roster moves, training camp for the Sixers begins tomorrow, Wednesday, September 24th. We will cover everything going on with training camp, heading into the preseason, and then, of course, the start of the regular season. You're not going to want to miss out on anything going on with the 76ers during training camp, so be sure to hit that sub button. We're trying to hit 24,000 subscribers right here on the channel, and with that, let's start today's show. All right, as I mentioned off the top, the Sixers making multiple roster moves, multiple signings right before training camp starts. I am Jake Chipper. You're watching 76ers Now by Chat Sports. So we're glad you are here with us. Those four signings the Sixers did make on Monday night. Of course, Emoni Bates, who we will dive a little bit deeper into as he's easily the most intriguing of the group here, as well as guard Jaylen Martin, guard Kennedy Chandler, who I was also a little bit of a fan of coming out of college, and then guard Malcolm Hill as well. Again, we'll talk about all these guys, but we got to start with Emoni Bates. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Emoni Bates, as he was a top 3 recruit back in high school, had a lot of hype coming out with his size, 6'9", 179, very tall, very lanky, right? And look, he's got a lot of skill to his game, but it's kind of that classic case of got a lot of skill, but wasn't really able to put it all together. In his NBA career thus far, 25 games in the NBA, really hasn't shown a whole lot, averaging just 3 points. And the big problem has been the efficiency. Again, I mentioned the number 3 recruit in the 2021 ESPN 300. And we know the Sixers have a tendency to go after these former top recruit guys in high school and hope that they can develop some of that talent here, like they did with a Justin Edwards. Spent his first college season at Memphis in a very disappointing first season, had some off-the-court issues, went to Eastern Michigan for his second season in college. Once again, just very disappointing, right? But he still was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 2023 NBA draft in the second round because of that former pedigree, right? But really was never able to find his footing in the NBA. Just 25 games with the Cavs over those 2 seasons and spent much of that time in the G League. Eventually, of course, was not retained by Cleveland. They moved on. He now joins the Sixers. Now, some people are going to be a little bit confused because I've seen some people saying in the comment section when I did a YouTube short on this earlier today that, what is he taking Quentin Grimes' roster spot? Does this mean Grimes is not going to be on the Sixers roster? Look, that is not the case. All of these guys, Emoni Bates and the other 3 players that we will talk about, are signed to Exhibit 10 deals. Basically, I thought this was a good rundown here from Courtside Buzz on X. It's a 1-year non-guaranteed minimum NBA contract that allows NBA teams to scout players during training camp, the preseason, and on their NBA G League team as well. Player can earn a monetary bonus if they do sign with the team's G League affiliate and remains there for a certain period of time. So really these signings are all to see these players during training camp, during the preseason, and kind of get a feel if they want these guys on the G League roster. And, who knows, maybe one of them could earn a call at some point by the Sixers or by another NBA team. Back to a little bit on Emoni Bates here. Again, the issue with him, he's got the size, he's got the shot-making ability. You look at him and, he's a little skinny, but, he looks like someone that would be difficult to guard on the basketball floor, right? He has the tools are theoretically there, but look, even in the G League, yeah, he put up almost 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, but shot under 40% from the field, just 33.8% from 3. That has been the story on him, even going back to high school, when he was a really highly touted prospect and highly touted recruit, never an efficient basketball player. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of that classic case of he's got the raw talent. It's in there. He was a top recruit, yes, for a reason, but hasn't really been able to develop and play that more matured brand of basketball and play that NBA-style brand of basketball. And you look at his height, because he is smaller, doesn't really fill the Sixers' needs of someone who can be in there as that typical 4, get boards down low. He's not a guy that's going to do that. He's really an offensive forward player that has never been able to be an efficient offensive player. And so when that's kind of the skill set you have, like there's a reason why he was not able to stick around in Cleveland. Now, with that being said, I know I've said a little bit down on him, right? Because highly touted prospect, didn't really work out thus far in his NBA career. It is a very low-risk shot at some upside. That's why I do like the idea of bringing Bates in here on an Exhibit 10 deal to see what he can do in training camp, see what he can do in the preseason, and probably keep him on the G League roster. And maybe you can develop him because he is still a young player, right? He has spent just 2 seasons in the NBA, and there is undeniable talent in there somewhere. Sixers have done a pretty decent job at developing some young players. Doesn't always hit, right? They don't have a 100% hit rate, but can they get that out of Emoni Bates? That's why I like this signing. Again, very, very low risk. It's a non-guaranteed contract. You're not paying him anything. He'll probably just be on the G League roster. But is there a chance that Emoni Bates could get a two-way spot? As it stands right now, the Sixers' two-way spots are full, right? NBA teams can only carry 3 two-way players at a time. Right now, that is occupied by Dominic Barlow, Jabari Walker, and Hunter Salas. But we've talked about this before in the show. The Sixers have 2 roster spots open, and we'll take a look at the roster a little bit later. But I imagine one of Barlow or Walker is going to earn a call-up to the actual NBA roster sooner rather than later, leaving a two-way spot potentially open for a player on the G League team, or if the Sixers want to go out and sign somebody else. So there's a shot that Emoni Bates could end up earning at least a two-way spot if and when one of Barlow or Walker is eventually called up. So something to keep an eye on, of course, but he does have to play well to earn that spot. Plenty of other guys will be fighting for that role as well. So what do you guys think? Will Emoni Bates end up earning a two-way contract with the 76ers this season? Give me a yes, give me a no down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about Bates. Now, before we get to these other 3 players the Sixers have signed, and they actually already made another roster move with one of these 3 players that we'll get to here in just a moment. I want to tell you guys about a fantastic deal on the 76ers zip-up jacket that, I mean, just look at that thing. It looks like it's going to keep you real warm during those cold months. And I know September right now, it's not freezing yet, but look, come November, come December, it's going to get cold. And what better way to stay warm in those cold months than with a Sixers zip-up jacket like this that not only looks good, you're repping the Sixers as well, and it's comfy, but look, you're getting it at a great price right now. Normally $85 for this jacket. You can get it right now for just $30 if you go to chatsports.com/76ers jacket. That link will be in the comment section and description of today's show. Go to that link, take it to Fanatics. You'll be able to get this jacket, again, down from $85 to just $30. Are you kidding me, man? And you got to get it now because once it starts getting colder out, that deal is not going to apply anymore. Again, chatsports.com/76ers jacket. Go ahead, take advantage, click that link today. So here are the other 3 signings the 76ers made, and we'll start here with Jaylen Martin from Overtime Elite, 6'6", 216 guard, who, funny enough, didn't go the college route, I should say. You could see he's from Overtime Elite, decided to go with that overtime route. Of course, Overtime Elite, I don't believe exists anymore as an option for players to get to the NBA, but decided that was his route. He has the most recent NBA experience, spending time last year between the Wizards and the Nets, 16 games, 5 points, 2 rebounds. Again, these are G League guys that are really not going to make much of an impact. With Jaylen Martin, though, I mentioned the Sixers already made a roster move with one of these players. The Sixers have actually already requested waivers. This just happened on Jaylen Martin. So technically, he's not going to be on the roster, on the training camp roster. When training camp does start tomorrow, they sign him and immediately requested waivers on him. But he is apparently going to be joining the Blue Coats, the G League team, ASAP. So he's still technically a part of the organization, but not going to be a part of this training camp roster, I do not believe. This literally just happened as we're recording this video. So they signed him, they waived him, but he is expected to still join the G League squad and could fight for one of those two-way spots. Then we get Kennedy Chandler, the small guard out of Tennessee, who was an early second-round pick by the Spurs back a few years ago, but has spent the last 3 years in the G League. His first year with Memphis, of course, Grizzlies are the team that drafted him coming out of college. Did play 36 games, all coming in his rookie year for Memphis, but only 7 minutes a game. You can see the efficiency. 13% from 3. If you're going to be 6 foot, under 6'1", and shoot 13% from 3, you're just not going to last. He spent the last 3 years in the G League. This, to me, really just screams a G League signing for Philadelphia. If you're going to be that small, you're not going to be able to shoot, not going to be a great defender. It's really tough to carve out a role. But again, I imagine a G League signing there, but somebody I did like once upon a time coming out of Tennessee. And then Malcolm Hill here from Illinois, a little bit more size, 6'6", 220, and the NBA numbers look a little bit better for a player like Malcolm Hill. 3 points, 1.6 rebounds, shooting it decently. But once again, this is a player who's kind of been around the NBA a little bit. Another guy that I'm expecting really just to be a G League player. But you never know. Sixers, someone like Malcolm Hill could surprise and push for a two-way deal. I mentioned we're going to take a look at the roster. So still 2 open roster spots on this 76ers roster, waiting on Quentin Grimes still. It's amazing that training camp starts tomorrow, and we still have no idea what's going on with Quentin Grimes when he'll sign. Even when he does sign, though, the Sixers will still have one more roster spot open, and that's why I've said I imagine one of Jabari Walker or Dominic Barlow is going to get that final roster spot. We know Daryl Morey loves to do this, leave a spot open at the start of the season. And both Walker and Barlow are guys with NBA experience, especially Walker, I think, is a heavy favorite to take that spot, which, again, would then leave a two-way spot open for Bates, Jaylen Martin, Kennedy Chandler, Malcolm Hill. Yegor Milicic Jr. was somebody the Sixers signed to an Exhibit 10 deal after the draft out of Tennessee, who unfortunately dealt with injury throughout the entire summer. We never got to see him play, but another intriguing player that could also fight for that two-way spot. Sixers G League team, for what it's worth. Those of you who are real NBA sickos, should be pretty fun to watch this year if all these guys do end up on that roster. What's also interesting here, I just wanted to point this out because this also came in right before the show started, and it kind of coincided with the news that the Sixers were waiving Jaylen Martin pretty much right away and sending him to the G League. The Utah Jazz today waived forward KJ Martin, of course, former Sixer. He was shipped off by Philadelphia at the trade deadline for absolutely nothing. It was honestly a pretty idiotic trade, in my opinion, because you save money that you could have just cut him in the offseason anyways. It was a non-guaranteed deal. Regardless, Utah has waived him, right? Appeared in 19 games for Utah last year. Was okay. We know for the Sixers, he had moments where with his athleticism, his ability to play above the rim, and started to develop a little bit of a three-point shot. He kind of looked like maybe he could be a rotation player, but at that salary, really was never able to be that. Could the Sixers maybe look to bring KJ Martin back to Philadelphia as a guy who could fill in that forward role? Not the big body you'd want, but at least he has some athleticism to go up and get rebounds. Nick Nurse was saying something KJ Martin had to do better was crash the glass. And if he could develop a three-point shot, could be pretty good theoretically. Never really able to quite get that, but I'm going to watch out for KJ Martin now is a free agent as teams are entering training camp. All right, that's all the latest news you need to know. Those couple of roster moves there for the 76ers ahead of training camp. Again, begins tomorrow, Wednesday, September 24th. And then media day is actually on Friday, so a couple of days after training camp does start. Before we hop on out of here and I'll let you guys go, get down in the comment section, chime in for me. What is one roster move that you would make if you were Daryl Morey before the start of the season? It can be releasing somebody, signing somebody, trading somebody, calling somebody up from the G League, whatever you want to do. Let me know down in the comment section. And as always, guys, let's go Sixers, and we'll see you next time right here on the show.